roundtable discussion with some of my colleagues, and then finally we'll wrap up the marathon with some tips and treats. We have some winners to announce this afternoon. All right, and as with most days, we're going to announce our quiz winners from day 9. And just to remind the audience of the question, how many custom apps are now developed outside of the IT department? And the correct answer was 60%. So we had a lot of correct answers in the queue, but we randomly selected 2 winners. First winner is John Hawkins, and second winner is Shiva Kumar. So congratulations, guys. You will be contacted via email on how to redeem your prize directly after our sessions today. Another contest we've been running is surrounding attendance at our Low Code Marathon. So we will be announcing winners of 3 iPads at the end of the day. So our team is tallying up the attendees, and we will be randomly selecting 3 winners for the iPads, and we'll be announcing those at the end of today's session. So stay tuned, and hopefully you're in contention for one of these iPads. Exciting prize. And just as a reminder to the audience, throughout today's session, if you have questions for our panelists, please submit those in the chat area. We will do our best to facilitate those to our speakers. If not, our offline team will do our best to answer those questions directly in the chat. So with that being said, let's get started with day 10. All right. And that brings us to our first session, our trendsetter session, challenging the stereotypes for business and IT. And I'm joined today by our Chief Sales Officer, Andy Zambito from the Americas, and he will be leading a discussion with Lindsay Scott. Lindsay is an American model and software developer and actress. So she really runs the gamut of what she does in her day-to-day life, and should be an exciting discussion. So Andy, I will turn it over to you.
I'm pleased and proud to announce that our guest today is Lindsay Scott, joining us for the Low Code Marathon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I imagine one of the first questions you often get asked is likely about your career path, given that you're now successful in 2 fields of acting and modeling, as well as technology, and some might view these as divergent or separate paths. Perhaps you can share with the audience how you ended up in this position today.
Okay, well, when I was about 12, I picked up my first TI-89 graphing calculator. And it came with a book of documentation, and I used that documentation to create games without really realizing that I was coding at the time. But when I ended up at Amherst College, and I knew I wanted to be a theater major because I loved acting so much, I had time to explore other fields because of the open curriculum. At first, I tried theater and econ, and then theater and physics, and finally I landed on computer science. I took my first computer science course. I fell in love with it, and I realized that I had been doing it when I was 12 even, without even knowing it. I loved the way that working with algorithms and machine learning, lower level languages, logic gates, all of that felt like playing a game in a way, a logic game the same way it did when I was 12.
You must have been a very special child. I struggled in college using my calculator, and you were reading documentation for it. So that's I think you found your calling early.
I saw it as a means to an end. You know, I loved games. I think a lot of kids do. And this, you know, that idea of being able to create them on your own, it was exciting to me.
Powerful. Well, if that was your first kind of programming experience, now that you've had much more, is there a programming language that you actually prefer to use today? You have a preference?
Yeah, well, I typically, I'm an iOS developer. That's my job.
Okay.
So I work in Swift primarily, but I also work in other. Honestly,
Yeah.
most languages are pretty much the same. It's always a means to an end, depending on the platform you're using. So I'm fine with working with anything as long as it creates what I want it to create.
Well, given the audience that we have today here, and they've joined us for the Low Code Marathon, I think the audience would be curious to know, have you ever considered or had any experience with low code or no code development platforms? And if so, what thoughts have you?
Sure. Well, when I work, obviously I get paid to code, and the more code I do, the better, because I get paid per hour. So that's good for me. Probably not so good for the companies. I'm sure they'd love to save some money with the lower code. But if you think about it, the code I do is the low code from yesterday, and I'm sure the low code today is the code of tomorrow. I think that as time goes on, we've moved from zeros to ones to higher and higher level programming language. And I'm sure that the low code is what everyone's going to be doing at some point. And yeah, I have worked with low code at marathons when I'm mentoring people who aren't so experienced at coding. We'll use things that drag and drop code around in order to make something that they can be proud of and excited of, and that's working and is useful without that much experience and without that much time.
Let me shift gears a moment. I appreciate that perspective, and I know you've done a lot of speaking, a lot of events, particularly focused on women in tech, and looking across getting the youth into technology and coding. So in your opinion, what are maybe some of the three biggest stereotypes in IT about gender?
Well, I think there are plenty. I on most of the projects I work on, I'm one of very few women in the company, and one of the few people of color, and I'm definitely always the only Black woman on a team. And when it comes to the actual development, actual programmers, there are very, very few female developers. So I think that sometimes people are surprised to see me on a job and to see that I know what I'm doing. For example, when I first moved to LA, this is actually one of the reasons I started getting back into programming. I became kind of tired of the modeling industry in so many different ways. And at a certain point, I realized that I wanted to transition out of that. And so towards the end of the time that I was really into modeling, where I was traveling all over the world, I was on planes, probably 3 times a week. I was exhausted. I was kind of tired of, rejection and shaming and all that. When I knew that I wanted to get out of it, that's when I started focusing on my phone that I just received, my iPhone. And I learned how to make things specifically for my device. Because just like when I was 12, that's what I had. And I knew that there was lots of documentation online for me to learn how to manipulate that into creating things that I wanted to create. So when I moved to LA, I knew that I wanted to focus on acting, and I was producing a show at the time too. And I just kept on programming until I could make my living from iOS development, from software engineering in general. And that's what I do now in order to earn a living. The original question was, before I went off on my little tangent there.
No, that was good. I mean, let's pivot off of that then and say, so since I know you do a lot of speaking and do a lot of interviewing of other leaders in tech as well, maybe you can share with the audience, what do you think needs to be done in order to help inspire more young women into the computer science field in IT or programming in general?
I think, for one, no one told me what programming was. No one told me anything about tech growing up. So when I was programming, I didn't even know I was programming. So I think it's great for young people to have ways to experiment easily too, using low code and other solutions in order to find out what they're getting themselves into, and use those sort of solutions to hopefully make something actually useful for them.
Sure.
I realized what you'd asked before was about and it has to do with this too. The fact that there aren't very many women in tech, I think that also scares a lot of girls off when you go into a room and you don't quite feel like you belong. For example, when I first moved to LA, I went to this party in Venice, and it was all male programmers. And I walk into the room, the conversation just stops, and I say, "Hey, what were you guys talking about?" And they said, "Oh, just programming. You wouldn't be interested."
Oh.
And that's the sort of thing that has happened many times. Luckily for me, I'm a contract developer, so I have people advocating for me, getting me jobs at this point. So I don't have as much to prove anymore when it comes to my work. But in social settings with people I don't know, I'm sure I still have something to prove in order to be taken, if I want to be taken the least bit seriously. And I'm sure a lot of girls, and I know for a fact, 50% of women exit technical jobs because of the hostile work environment.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, as of like 3 years ago, that was the statistic. And I'm sure actually, I don't think it's been getting better over the past few years. Because I think there's a tendency for a lot of programmers, when they see someone who doesn't quite fit the stereotype, they might think of them as not being a programmer in the same way that they are. For example, it's kind of silly, but on Twitter, I avoid looking at these things sometimes. But I saw this a couple of days ago. Someone tagged me in this post where someone said that they think that all developers, that no developers care about fashion, for example. It's not, there's no relation, that they're like, but my program, the guys in my company all just wear the same thing pretty much every day.
Right.
And yeah, I think we hear about some tech people, just having this bro attire or whatever it is, but it has nothing to do with how you look, what you wear, your interests. And I think there are a lot of people who a lot of coders who just they just need to be exposed to more of us, more women and people of color on a day basis.
Definitely so. Well, let me ask a poll of our audience, because we've been focusing on diversity in tech and IT, but there are many other departments and fields that also have this challenge. So a poll for our audience here is, in your organizations, what department do you feel lacks the most diversity? And there are a range of choices from finance, sales, HR, marketing, and IT as well. So I'll be really curious. We'll leave the polls open for the remainder of the session, and we'll be able to review the results at the end. So Lindsay, let me pivot. I really appreciate your perspective on that. I'm sure our audience does too. But I also want to ask about the kind of the future of the development world. So you talked about, you're using Swift now, which, as you mentioned, is kind of the low code of the past, because prior to that you had to write native, right? And so our vision at Creatio, of course, is a future where low code companies exist, and citizen developers is the term that's been coined for really business people who didn't program on their calculator and come up with that, don't know how to read the documentation, but are empowered to create applications or automate business processes. But I want to get your take on where you see, since you're living in this world as a paid developer now, the future of this going maybe in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, there is a huge gap in the number of developers wanted and the number of developers that actually exist. So I think that we definitely need coding or no coding to be more accessible for everyone. Because just as technology is growing year after year, the demand is for actual people who can develop. It's growing year after year, and it's the sort of thing that I think everyone should be able to do, or will have to be able to do, in order to have job security in the future.
Well, they've been saying for a long time about every company being in some degree a technology company. I think to your point, there's maybe only 25 million developers trying to satisfy the demands for maybe 500 million applications. Do you link these two things though, by the way? Like, so do you see a low code future, or the democratizing of that IT, the access to it, being tied to helping the diversity challenge that IT faces?
Well, I think there are a lot of issues when it comes to diversity, and there's so many that it's hard to pinpoint the place in tech that needs the most help. But for example, when I do my development for clients, it costs them a good bit of money, and a lot of companies can't afford that without a proper investment. There needs to be more access. And if developing technology isn't as expensive for people at a certain point in the future, then that gives them more opportunities to grow their business without needing that sort of investment from the get-go.
That was an interesting perspective, because you took it more to the financial side of it, which I don't think everybody really realizes. But I mean, you're right, that the development costs are high, and so if you can do it for less, faster, that itself, on top of the technology, could have a big impact. Well, let me turn that question to the audience as well. Let's ask us: do you believe that a low code, no code technology makes jobs more inclusive for everyone? And we'll pass that one on to the audience. You mentioned about the lack of developers. So it sounds like for you see this is probably still one of the hot growth areas where people should still be focusing as far as jobs and careers. Do you see any other major changes for the industry and where it's heading?
Yeah, yeah, there have definitely been major changes. When I started doing development work, I would do it from home as a contractor, and I would work remotely with all these different companies and have my own hours, have completely flexible schedule in order to be able to do my other passions, to be able to go to my acting classes and do my auditions. And a lot of companies were resistant to this at first, but things are changing, obviously. It's been a tough year, and I think people, in spite of all the struggles, they realize that there are different ways of doing things in general. And when it comes to work, there's more flexibility there. And I think that also gives people more opportunities to work in ways that are more suited to them. Like for me, where I like the flexibility, I like to be able to pursue different passions. I like how this world that we're living in now allows more of that than it did before.
With that then, so with the pursuit of your passions, is it possible that you might be willing to share with us some of your personal or particular plans of what you're working on right now? A sneak peek about that?
Yeah, well, for client work, I can't say too much because of security reasons, but I am working on some technology that is being used in vaccine laboratories to make vaccine production safer and more efficient. There used to be an old way of doing things that, for example, that there was a lab in Maryland that lost 15 million batches or doses of the vaccine because of some mistakes that were on paper, believe it or not. And so this client is now working with that lab and many others in order to digitize vaccine production. And then I also have a contract that is working with the NFL on it's an API, essentially.
Wow, very exciting and very different type of projects there.
For those, obviously code is great for me since I get paid per hour, but I also have my own project, and I really, really wish that I went in, that it was that I was capable of doing it with as low amount of code as possible, because it would make it much easier to maintain. And for that, I have a couple different apps related to acting. Actually, I think in general, coding's nothing without having passions. You always have to have something to apply it to. And so since my passion's acting, it's nice that I've been able to do some coding or some acting apps on my own.
You've married the two passions. Lindsay, it's fascinating about the working with an organization, vaccine. Obviously, that's top of mind for everyone, and I imagine it's also a very secure situation where you can't reveal too much. But maybe you can expound a bit on, you mentioned that it was manual processes at the heart of this that was causing the problems, and paper processes, and you were brought in to transform that. So maybe you can talk to us about that aspect.
I was so surprised that they lost, I think it was like 13 or 15 million doses of the vaccine because of the fact that they had maybe 1,000 pages.
Wow.
Out of those 1,000 pages of paper they used to make the vaccine, they probably forgot one page. They might have accidentally, 2 pages might have been stuck together, who knows? And the whole batch had to be thrown out.
Wow.
So the company that I'm working with, we have a way to use technology in order to make sure that that sort of thing doesn't happen again.
How do you approach that? The idea of taking something from that manual world into the technological. What was the kind of the core tasks that you guys were looking at to do that?
Well, my task is about the main thing I'm working on is about teams working together.
Okay.
Essentially, but for this company, they've created their own hardware solutions and software, and are kind of combining everything in order to make it as easy as possible for these companies to produce not just vaccines, but medications in the future. Right now, the focus is on vaccines, but for medications.
Well, that's the focus for everyone, I think, right? But I mean, it sounds like a combination of collaboration and automation to remove, I guess, the errors or you said of
Yes.
missing one page that's in there. So a lot of process mapping, probably.
Definitely, a lot.
No, that's fair. I mean, I saw some earlier interviews of several apps. You didn't even mention them now, and you're on telling about these great new vaccine-related ones or NFL. So obviously, a lot of exciting things going on for you. Is there any parting statement you'd like to give to our audience, or a piece of advice that you'd like to share?
I think for anyone who is afraid of technology, and a lot of people are afraid of that idea of coding, I think that it's a great idea to start somewhere. And I think that no code is a great way to start learning about what's going on behind your computer screen in there with all the little bits of your computer. I think you should just try, because that's the way things are headed. And I think it's important for our economy, for our world, to have as many diverse voices and interests fueling the technology that we have, that it's going to be produced for our future. I guess a lot of people are often talking about how artificial intelligence is being built by people and there's a limited set. And I'm excited to see, once coding is more accessible for everyone, what great software and hardware and everything that can be produced in the future that we haven't seen yet.
Well, amazing.
Because we have those voices to contribute yet.
Yeah, well, we're aligned, I think, in that, and we're super excited as well when we look at the 1.7 billion knowledge workers out there driving business, and only 25 million of them can actually produce the apps right now. So we do see a lot of potential in the future, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to spend with us today and share your thoughts and your work with the audience. So thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. And that brings us into our next exciting session, Women in Technology. It's a very important discussion on lessons learned from the front line during COVID-19 and how low code has helped shape the business landscape. This discussion is going to be led by our very own Catherine Kostareva, CEO and Managing Partner of Creatio. And today, Catherine will be joined by some exciting guests, Lori Seal, CEO of Blytheco, Rebecca Wedeman, CEO and Principal Analyst at Valor, and Aina Neva Fiati, Managing Director at iSystems Asia. So Catherine, I'll turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here today. And I am thrilled to welcome my guests. We have Lori from Blysko, we have Rebecca, and we have Aina. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can kick us off. I'm Lori Seal. I'm the CEO of Blysko. I have been in the technology space for 20 years in roles spanning finance, operations, strategy, and M&A. I had the pleasure of growing my career at Sage, a large software publisher, where I served in various leadership roles for 13 years. I have been leading Blysko, a partner for Creatio, for almost 9 years, and am now co-owner of our firm. You know, growing up as a young adult, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I really had no idea. And unfortunately, I fell into the tech space, which I have absolutely loved serving in. My background involved having an accounting degree, and really I joined Sage as a staff accountant in my 20s. And so it wasn't intentional.
I didn't know that. That is fantastic. I knew that you had finance degree, but I never knew that you joined the company as an accountant. Wow.
Yeah. And so it could have been anywhere.
Kudos, Lori. And you grew to the CEO role of the company.
It's been quite a fascinating journey. I think about, maybe about a third of the way through, I became so passionate about the operations and the marketplace. I remember taking that leap going, am I going to leave finance and move into operation roles and then strategy roles? I think that's sometimes the courage to leave behind what we thought our plan was and embrace a bigger plan. So looking backwards, it all makes perfect sense, but I never would have saw how I would have landed where I am today.
Love it, Lori. And Lori is joining us from California. So it's 7:30 a.m. in California right now. Early morning. Is it correct?
Early morning. I am hearing kids stirring upstairs, so it is indeed early. I'm first one up.
Great. And at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, we have Aina, founder and CEO of our partner iSystem Asia, joining us from Indonesia, where it is 9:30 p.m. in the morning. Right? So the kids are probably going to bed right now. Aina, hello. Tell us, please introduce yourself and tell us how are things in Indonesia.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to meet you all and very glad to be here. I'm about to sleep actually. It's about 10 p.m. here in Jakarta. Okay, but thanks to Creatio for making this session happen. Okay, maybe firstly let me introduce myself. I'm Aina Neva from iSystem Asia, a company based in Jakarta. So I lead this company since 2012. The company is focusing on the CRM and business process automation. And we are also the certified partner of Creatio for Asia Pacific region. So actually, I've been in the industry since 95. Oh, how old I am.
But your degree, Aina, but your degree is also like it's in marketing, right? You started in politics and then marketing. Tell us this story, how you got from marketing, how did you get into the tech industry?
Yeah, actually I graduated from marketing management. So beginning my career, I started my career as a telemarketer. The very starting point as a telemarketer in an US-based courier service company for about 2 years. After that, I started my IT journey working in an IT company. It is the company reseller of an ERP application from US. So I was there for about 4 years in that company. And then I resigned with my last position as a head of marketing and sales. Since then, I continue my track, my journey in IT business. And working from one IT company to another company, mostly working with leading world-class software vendors. Yeah. And yeah, that's the story. My career keeps going.
Right. And then in 2012, you founded iSystem Asia, right? So you were one of the founders.
Yeah. There are two founders, me and my late shareholder, but passed away already 5 years back. So now I am alone here, and the only woman executive in the company.
Got it. So we have a lot to discuss here with you, and I have another founder here joining us today, Rebecca. Please tell us about Valor. Tell us about your story, how you got into tech, and how you founded your company.
Hey, Catherine, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining today. Excited to be here. So yes, founder of Valwar, an analyst firm focused on maximizing the value, as the name would imply for those francophones out there, of the relationships between people and technology. So focused primarily on customer relationship management and human capital management, and helping companies understand the value of the technologies in that space. Before Valwar, I was a co-founder at Nucleus Research. Before that, I built and ran a European practice for IDC. So I've been an analyst for a long time, but I really got into tech like a lot of people who fell into tech with an undergraduate degree in political science and French. It certainly wasn't where I thought I was going, but my first job was in research for the US government. And they needed someone to talk to the engineers about Voice of America, the radio program at the time. And so they sent the low woman on the totem pole to work with the engineers and liaise with the research department. And I found that I had a knack for understanding, asking the right questions, and being able to explain to non-technical folks what the geeks were saying. So that led me to like that role of translation and technology. I went on to work for the International Telecommunication Union in Geneva, working on another technology transformation project. Did my master's degree at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy with a focus on tech policy, and then really built my career as an analyst, and have been following the CRM space for the better part of 2 decades now, and certainly following Creatio and the low-code space for a long time as well.
We are very lucky to have 3 of you at this panel today. That's obvious, and I have a ton of questions to ask. And let me start with some stats. I have good news and bad news to share. So let's start with the good news. 47% of the employed population in the US today is women, which is great news, 47%. But at the same time, if we look at the tech industry, it's going to be 25%. And if we look specifically at the CIO role, it's going to be 18%, even less. So let's talk about the uniqueness of the tech industry and why the percentage of the employed women in this industry is so much lower than in any other industry, like almost any other industry. Any thoughts on that?
I could certainly jump in. You know, I think there's certain things that we think about when we talk in advancement, and I know Lori has specific thoughts on that. But we recognize that technology, engineering, STEM, not just entrance, but advancement as well, has been a pretty closed club for a long time, and particularly as women are working up the ladder, networking is such a huge part of this. So certainly the ability to not just get entrance into programs, but to be accepted into the social groups around those programs, and then accepted into those networks at higher level of management is really important. I think too, we have to point out that women historically haven't asked as much as men have, and particularly in tech, where you may not have people looking for people to ask for advancement, it becomes an important part of it. So I think one of the things when I talk with young women today is about asking for what you want and not being afraid to ask for that next opportunity.
Right. And you know what? Just before our panel, Lindsay Scott, a former model, was talking to Andy about her current job, which is being a software developer with the previous career in modeling and theater. And she mentioned that she literally was one in a whole group of people, being a woman, but at the same time a woman of color. So like like her feedback to Andy was that she's more or less often feels herself alone among women, among men in tech, in software development industry. And do you guys believe that low code, no code technology is gonna be changing this trend that we're seeing in the tech industry, where only 25% of women are employed by the tech companies? Like, do you believe that low code, no code would be the solution here? Lori, Rebecca, Aina, what do you think, guys?
You know, I think when you go ahead,
Go ahead,
Rebecca.
No, please.
You know, it's interesting to me, all these wonderful programs that are out now, right? Like Girls Who Code, right? Wonderful programs that are, I think, setting the right role model for women to embrace, you know, their, you know, kind of coding super skills. You know, when you do think about more of a low code, no code environment, I think it also plays into other skills that women can bring: empathetic listening, right? You know, being able to configure and tailor solutions to help companies really get the most out of their software investment. You know, it's not just about being in a back room and programming anymore.
Yeah.
It's around tailoring software to help companies get jobs done. And a lot of that is change management. A lot of that is, you know, visioning, you know, elegant solutions. There's design elements, you know, functional design. And those skills, in my mind, are more critical to helping companies leverage technology than just hardcore coding. So I think in many ways, I think it's going to unlock a broader spectrum of capabilities, particularly ones that women can bring to the table.
Oh, Lori, that's a brilliant point. Let me rephrase it. Are you saying right now that the skills that you need to be a successful citizen developer, rather than a coder and professional developer, professional software developer, are very, very different, and they fit women much more than they fit men? Is it the message, actually?
You know, I mean, I don't want to be, limiting any gender. You know, I think I have a lot of masculine capabilities, and I know a lot of men that have very nurturing capabilities. But I do think in terms of the stereotypes that we think, you know, that maybe have prevented certain people from being interested in certain professions, I think it's absolutely going to level set and make more accessible putting technology to work, for sure.
Absolutely, I'm with you.
Just to add on what Lori said, Catherine, you know, we low code has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. What is different about right now? Well, what's different about right now is the community around low code, the ability to get online and learn how to use it, to ask questions of other people who know how to use it, but also to contribute my expertise, right? To grow my career, see opportunities for me to not just learn more, but earn more as a low code developer, and to be able to do all of that online in the distributed community. You know, there's the old saying on the internet, no one knows you're a dog, right? In the low code world, no one cares where you are, who you are. They care about your expertise, your knowledge, and your willingness to contribute and help others in that low code community. And that's where people are building their reputation, building their ability to earn, building their profiles as leaders today, is in that virtual community that now exists in the low code world. And that's super important for leveling the playing field and giving a lot of opportunities for both entering and advancing in the workforce.
Yeah. And Catherine, I think with the rise of low-code technology, in my opinion, in my point of view, I believe that more and more women and citizen developer will take the role as the developers. I believe that the easy to use of the low-code platform is enable them to do that, and where traditional programming are, we know, majority mastered by men rather than women. Maybe also because of the nature of the woman. I think designing is more interesting for women rather than doing the hard coding, right?
That might be true, and I'm with you here, but I'd love to hear your thought about another survey that the results of the survey said that 78% of women in tech feel that they have to prove their worth more than their men peers. Have you experienced that? And do you believe that low code, no code approach and technology will be helping with this challenge as well? Like proving that you are actually a professional and you are worth attention from the colleagues. What are your thoughts on that? Who'd like to start? Lori.
Yeah, I think this goes back to, when you go back to how kids were raised, generations before, men were out there sword fighting and women were, playing house. And, I think there's a difference in how kids are being raised today. I mean, my daughter's a gamer. She's got a headset. She's playing with the boys. She's right there, getting into the fray with them. So we're in a sense, we're the generations that are evolving how we see ourselves, and that's shaping how we're raising our children to see ourselves. Right. So to me, I don't think it's as much our hard wiring as I think it's our software, not our hardware. And that we're, in a sense, reprogramming what our capabilities are. We're shattering our own glass ceilings. We're making that clear. I mean, my daughter's 13 years old and she grows up in a house where her mom's the CEO of a software company. No one's going to tell her that she can't lead or be in tech or do, any of the things that she wants to do. So I do see it more as, some of the roles that, we're probably critical, in a former time where, someone went out and, provided, and someone did the really hard job of, hearth and home and raising the kids. And, many days I think, ooh, I get to go to work, like raising these teenagers, that's the hard stuff,
It is actually, I would agree with you. I'm joking with my husband all the time that being the CEO of the company is so much easier than raising a teenager who I have in the house as well. Yes, I can't.
I don't know what you ladies think, but I don't know what you ladies think, but that's, my take on, a lot of these stats is just, we're going through kind of a societal transformation.
Yeah, so you're seeing actually that our kids won't be like, we won't see the stats of female feeling that they need to prove themselves and work harder in order to prove that they are as brilliant as their male co-workers. That's actually
my view.
Okay. I know. How are things in Indonesia? Tell me about Indonesia. How are things there in terms of?
Yeah. If I remember my previous experiences, I don't think that's happened to me, Catherine. Mm-hmm. My male coworkers were very supportive and cooperative. So we work hand in hand to achieve our goals together. And even in my personal experiences, that was many times happen in opposite, where my male coworkers have to work harder than me, and they have to prove that they are capable on their position. That's my experience. I don't know where in US maybe that's happened here with me in Jakarta.
I'm sure that we're going to see a lot of people thinking about moving to Indonesia after what you just said, Aina. That's brilliant. Thank you. Rebecca, what have you seen and experienced?
I think what Lori said is so important about this cultural shift that we're seeing. And I think that certainly I've experienced it. But as we see a new echelon of managers come in to organizations that have had their software upgraded, as Lori said, and are looking at opportunities across the board, I think we're also raising and empowering young women who aren't afraid to ask and who have more confidence, whether they're gamers or coders or part of Girls Who Code. We're starting earlier on those things. So I think it takes, yes, the cultural shift that Lori mentioned in raising children, but also upgrading our management and our leaders who have a broader view of what everyone can bring to the table today.
By the way, talking about management and leaders, let's look at some stats again. So if you look at the support staff, we're going to see 47% of women working in different roles. When we look at the managers' roles, we're going to see already 37% there. Senior management, 29%. Executives, 23%. Board members, ladies, 17%. So it looks like a leaky pipeline to me, right? Because the numbers are decreasing the higher in this ladder you're going. And again, it's a lot of about this balancing act between your responsibilities at home and all the pressure you have being the female in like old stereotypes about the role of female in the family, but at the same time having very, very high responsibilities being the CEO of your companies. Share your experience. I'm sure that we have a lot of female listeners here at our audience asking questions and participating in this discussion. What is your best practice? How to balance this workload that you have as female leaders of your companies, and at the same time all the responsibilities you have at home? And in general, what do you think about this leaky pipe? The higher you go, the smaller the percentage of women.
I think it's a latency thing. You know, my view is you fast forward 20 years, and I think we're going to see much greater equity in those numbers. You know, it's just kind of going back to, you know, when I was coming up the ranks, you know, there were still, you know, I think about like my whole background and how many women did I report to? And I literally had one female executive in my entire career that I reported to. Other than that, I reported to men. But I think that's more of a function of, you know, again, just those changing roles over the last 50 years. You know, less women were, you know, really striving. You know, they were the ones that would take extended time and step back out of their career to raise the kids and come back in. So there was this sort of lost momentum. And as I look in my business today, we have over, you know, 100 employees. We're a virtual organization. We're in 26 states. So, you know, we've got a really interesting representation of diversity in our business, you know, ages, skills, you name it. And we're about 50-50 in both our leadership team of men and women, which is not common for tech, and in our entire workforce, we're 50-50. So, you know, we're seeing it. And I think, you know, as I look towards the future, you know, I've had, you know, recently, you know, female team members who had a baby, you know, sometimes it's the men that are taking paternity leave now.
Right.
I'm seeing different choices become available and different ways that younger professionals are partnering to raise the children that, you know, are starting to look different. So I'm wondering, you know, Catherine, if, you know, we just allow that sort of change to continue to play out, you know, are we going to find that there's a lot of female board leaders, you know, 30 years from now? Because I'm just not seeing that same mindset earlier in the workforce that many of us inherited and had to redefine.
Right, right. So Lori, are you saying that at Blythe, if we take the whole executive team, how many, do you mind if I ask, how many people do you have on the executive team?
Well, I don't know if I would carve it out just on our executive team, but if I say our management team, all of our people managers, we have about 20 folks that are people managers, and about 10 of those are women.
Are women. Okay, so you are actually at this 50-50 target that everyone is dreaming about. Here at Creatio, I can share with you, we're at 40% of women population, 60% of men. But fantastic, kudos on that. That's amazing news. Actually, congratulations. That's awesome. Aina, Rebecca, what do you think? And share with us either your numbers or just share your thoughts about this career ladder that is leaking on its way.
You know, I would say a couple of quick things. First, Valwar is small. We're 8 people, but majority women by far. That's a function of finding the right people and nurturing the right people, I think. I think we have to separate the board question from the rest of the management question, because board is very much invitation only. And so I think we'll see that happen slower. We've certainly seen efforts to bring more women onto board position, but I'm on a board today. I'm the only woman And board is very much still a networking, connection-based recruiting system at that level. But I wanted to build on one thing that Lori said about changing how we think about the workforce, because I think we have a real opportunity right now. Obviously, the whole work from home phenomenon has hit women harder than it has men in a lot of cases. But as we think about reopening and redefining what our work roles look like, women also have an opportunity to ask for more, to demand more in that new remote or hybrid work environment for what works for them, whether it's different hours, different days, different locations for work. Now is an opportunity for, as we move out of the tactical, we have to figure out remote work, to the long term, how do we maximize a hybrid work environment for women to look at not just tech support, but their entire career support and say, I can define my role more actively in my way that works for me to balance that. I think that's super important to think about right now.
It's very, very, very important things to think about. And actually, Rebecca, Lori, again, kudos to you, to your numbers, because I'm looking at the poll results right now, and we asked the audience who joined this session, what is the percentage of women in the executive team at your companies? So guess what the results are, because the results are very, very sad, honestly. 36% believe that less than 15% of their executives in their companies, and those could be huge, large organizations, of course, are women. Less than 15%. 27% of respondents say that it is 45% plus, and 18% between 15 and 25. So it's still a lot of work to do for many companies to get more women into the executive teams, into the senior management. But Rebecca, I'm with you. I do completely agree that, like, when you deliver, when you work as a professional and deliver the results, it's so much easier to grow in this career ladder from the professional to the senior management level to the executive leader level to the CEO of the company. But the board thing is pretty different. So it will take a little bit longer to get there in terms of the numbers. In agreement here. Aina, what do you think on this leaky pipeline of the career ladder?
Yeah, here in my company, we have only 10% of women, and 10% total from the population. And in the executive level, only myself as a woman. So
and
yeah.
Why do you believe, like, why the situation is so different? For example, if we take Blyska, you both are our system integrators. I know that both of your companies are fantastic and doing great. Like, why, Lori, why do you think there is such a big difference in terms of women population in your companies? And although, again, both companies are super successful.
I think a lot of it's brand. You know, when you're really promoting a brand that's warm, you know, I think too, you know, having women in leadership. I know we've had a lot of, you know, it's a very competitive hiring market we're all in. I mean, getting tech talent is the hardest thing that we all do, right? Getting quality, you know, team members to implement and deliver our solutions. And we've actually had a number of you know, earlier in their career women who, one of the reasons for joining Blytheco is they like the fact that there's a female CEO. I mean, it's kind of maybe a weird, you know, reason to join a company, but they feel their journey will be very well supported. So is there sort of maybe a laws of attraction thing happening? I mean, Catherine, you mentioned similar stats for Creatio. You know, I think that, you know, women, you know, the girls who code, and they look at that and they think, oh, I want to work there. You know, there's a testament to you being the founder and the CEO, you know, that I think is inspiring for other women. I think they're attracted to join those kinds of companies. So maybe there's, you know, some selection bias, you know, in that, you know, a little bit, but I'd certainly be interested in the other ladies and, you know, their perspective.
Aina. What do you
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe because of most of our team is programmers and engineers, so most of them are men. So the non-tech naturally women work in non-technical professions. So the women in our company mostly work for non-technical profession like marketing communication,
Yeah.
secretary, things like that. Mhm.
So, Aina, are you telling right now that in Indonesia, maybe the education and the colleges and universities are not have so many graduates in computer science and not so many people working in computer science? So you actually even you, although I'm sure you'd love to have more women developing the software and doing technical job, you literally can't find them in the country. Is it kind of a challenge we're talking about here?
I think it goes back to the nature of the woman here. So most of the computer science graduates are men. So it is hard for us to find women programmers for our company. Even though I think it's better if we combine between the men and women programmers to make it company more balanced. But yeah, thanks to low-code technology, maybe after this, then we can have more women involving as a citizen developers.
And do you guys see a lot of additional challenges that women have in the tech world, or even not only the tech world, but even if we talk about the senior management and leadership jobs in the companies? Do you believe that these days, and again, I completely agree that in the future, the situation, like in 10 years, even from today, the situation is going to change. But if we take nowadays, do you see that it's more challenging for women to take these executive roles in the companies and to run all the responsibilities that these executive roles require in comparison to the men? Do you see any additional challenges, or do you believe it's quite kind of equal today?
Yeah, I can say that, yeah, for women it's harder for them to get the higher ladder in the management position. Maybe because of the natural passion of women or their motherhood type of persons, something like that. So I see that still men are dominate the leadership ladder.
Yeah. Rebecca, Lori, what do you see, guys? Like, let's talk a little bit. I know that we have just a few minutes left, but I really would love to hear from your side. It's obvious that in Indonesia there are more challenges for women to take the leadership job. What about the US today?
I think Lori's point about culture is so important. You know, I think a big part of it is culture, and it depends on the individual company. And I think women entering the workforce and looking for a new career are increasingly looking at who is in the management leadership, what does that mean about culture, and what does that mean about the opportunities for advancement. So it certainly depends sector by sector and even company by company. I would say there certainly are organizations where there's still big challenges for women. There are others like Blytheco that are doing a great job, obviously, promoting women and bringing their skills to the table. And I think that's great.
You know, it's still so hard, right? I mean, I think part of what's hard is the expectations that we put on ourselves. You know, some days I feel like I'm, failing as a mom and failing as a leader. It's so hard to balance. And, those standards we put on ourselves, I still want to be present, with my children. I want to be, super intense, working and just getting, goals accomplished and super driven professionally, and trying to like sometimes just accept that you're doing the best you can and cut yourself some slack. I mean, it's we strive so hard, so many of us, to break these glass ceilings, and we get to these positions of leadership. And then there are some days I'm like, whoo, why did I want to do this again? So it's a wonderful journey. And I think, being a woman and expecting ourselves to also be nurturing and keeping our house awesome and, keeping our social calendar up to date and being a great spouse, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And, it's not an easy journey.
Lori, I'm going to share with you guys this anecdote that I have from my personal life. My two sons asking me, Mom, why are you working so hard? Our friends' moms, like, we don't see them on over the play dates, all this stuff. We don't see them working so hard. Why are you literally spending so much time doing work, like job, not kind of home? And I will be very honest with you. Sometimes I'm stuck how to answer this question because it depends on the situation. Every time my answers are different, but sometimes I'm completely stuck how to answer this one. Yeah, because again, and I'm with you. Honestly, I have no doubt that in 5-10 years, the situation is gonna change dramatically, and we're gonna be, we're Blythe's case today. We're gonna see 50% men, women at work in senior positions. So I'm confident it's gonna change, but we're not there yet. So the only question is, we're not there yet. We're getting there as a society, as human beings. We're getting there, but like it takes time and effort. So last question, and I see this comment here. I just love to read it from a chat, and that would be my last one very quickly. My niece is learning how to code. She is 5. And the question is,
Awesome.
This is awesome. I do like, that's fascinating. Is equality has to do with where the companies are located? So again, we're blessed to have California, Virginia, and Indonesia on this call today. So do you believe that the situation is very different in different parts of the world? And again, it's going to take a little bit longer for some other regions to get there. So that would be my last question for today. What do you think? Okay.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. 100%. Yes. So Lauren, do you believe that California is there already? Like, is Blyska with your 50% ratio unique? Or like on average in California, that's what you see, guys?
I think it is unique. And again, we're in 26 states, so I can't really cite it as, any particular geography, at all. I do think, though, it does vary quite a bit by country, and by kind of the societal values and roles, and that's progressing at very different rates. Because this is very new, what we're doing. I mean, technology, back in the days, men were like, getting the big game and women were like tending the fields. I mean, we've evolved, like technology didn't exist 100 years ago. So the whole like ways that we can produce an income are very new in the, tens of thousands of years that we've been a human species. And it's just such a fascinating thing we're seeing. But I would definitely agree. It really is more around societal and cultural norms, in my opinion.
Aina, thank you, Lori. Aina, what do you think? Is the situation different in terms of geographies? Aina, Rebecca, your final thoughts on this one?
Absolutely different in terms of geographies, different in terms of culture of the company. But we have to remember too that the first coders were women. Right? When computers came out, it was the secretary, the typer's job to do those coding. It wasn't until the men realized that the stuff was really valuable that it became a man's job.
Right. That's a great comment. And let me wrap up on this beautiful comment about the first female coders. And thank you very much, Rebecca, Aina, Lori. Seriously, fantastic pleasure, great conversation. Thank you very much for being with us. And I hope that's the great final day of the Low Code Marathon. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day and evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
we have Sam Biardo joining us from Chicago at Technology Advisors, and Sebastian Forget from Solution Metrics. And we also have Alan join. Alan, how many sessions is this for you at this point in our low code marathon?
Oh, I've not done anything like the number you have, Eric, but this one's my full.
Okay, all right. I was going to say we've had several conversations at this point, so wonderful. And our topic today is again, surrounding digital transformation and its effect on the industries and also the future. If we think back, there's been a lot of changes in the way we've had to adapt to customer behavior, different conditions. But I think like at this point, our recent situation that we went through really was challenging. I think in a sense different from other outside factors that we've had. We had to adapt very, very rapidly during the pandemic, right? It forced a lot of organizations to take a hard look at many different broken processes, many different technologies that weren't agile enough to adapt to the changes that we were all forced to go through. So digital transformation strategies, typically we're on a roadmap, right? Maybe 3 to 5 years, but pandemic hit and those roadmaps shortened to almost like it had to be immediate just to stay afloat. So, in today's discussion, we'll be, looking at the impact on different industries and where we see that going in the future. But, what I think is important, because digital transformation is a broad statement. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And what I would like to start with is, maybe if we go around the table here and we give, in 1 or 2 sentences, how do you define digital transformation? And I think of no one better to start with than Sam Biardo. Sam has a lot of experience with digital transformation. How would you define that for the audience in 1 or 2 sentences?
I think it's rethinking all your processes from a digital perspective and eliminating any waste in your organization.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. Sebastian, how about you?
Yeah, I see digital transformation from the customer point of view. So it's the way you want to transform your business to be more customer centric. Mm-hmm. And engaging with them in more digital way. So you always have your traditional sales channel, but how you can provide them the digital experience. So I see it from there's an internal, like Sam mentioned, where your internal process, but you also have customer facing. So that's definitely one of the motivators of our prospect and customer to go digital transformation is to better serve their customer, more efficient, more rapidly, more digital, anytime, anywhere, omni-channel experience, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Alan, what's your definition of digital transformation?
Well, I agree with all the comments that Sam and Sebastian have made. But for me, digital transformation is also to look at every manual process you've got. If there are things that aren't already digital in their nature, really examine them, look at the manual procedures and try to turn them into digital ones if you can. It will improve efficiency within the organization. It'll improve the ability to share information because now it's no longer part of the manual recording process. It's shared through your digital medium. So yeah, manual to digital. That's my definition.
Yeah, and I agree with all of those statements. And you see a common theme, right? The key word is transform, right? We're trying to transform all of those manual processes, those services and products that you're offering your customers, taking the complexity out of those and making them more digitally focused, leading to that efficiency, leading to a better experience, both internally as well as externally. And when we talk about customers, we have 2 types of customers, right? Our customers outside of our organization, but also our customers on the inside, right? We have to ensure that our employees are empowered as well with the latest technologies. So, so we've seen a lot in terms of digital transformation through different types of industries. What I would be interested in kind of hearing from the panel here is how do you see digital transformation going into the future? What do you think most organizations are going to have to be kind of focused on for the future of digital transformation? Let's go in reverse order. We'll start with Alan for that one and work our way counterclockwise this time.
Okay. Well, I think that basically organizations are going to have to look at the ways they engage customers. I don't know if you saw it, but earlier on this month, LinkedIn produced a report on the state of sales, and they looked at all the different trends which have been emerging through the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, which we hopefully will do soon. And the ones that were there that were obvious were they had trend number one is that selling's become virtual, and that's obviously one that's here to stay, and that requires digital. And that sales organizations are starting to or having to trust technology because they can't navigate this change without the technology. And there was a whole list of trends that LinkedIn identified. Number 5 is the one that we're really talking about here today, which was data is a differentiator. Now that we're coming out of the old way of doing things and into this new way of doing things, where virtual is the way that we engage with our customers and our suppliers, then if you don't have the right data and if you can't share the right data, you're going to come unstuck and do less well than the next guy. And so digital transformation becomes about getting the right data, differentiating your offer and the way you deal with customers through making that data insightful, so that you really can show a difference in the way you go to market with the support of this technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a kind of kickoff to this stage of the discussion, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a good way to kick it off as well, right? There's no shortage of data, whether that's customer data, any analytical data that we have to make our processes more efficient. It's there. It's just how do we go about transforming that data into something actionable? So great point, Alan. Sam, let's move to you on that.
Sure. I think what's really happened is the buying process has changed, and that say 5 years back, you would do a little investigation. You might read about the product online, then you would reach out to the vendor for all the demos and stuff, and then you'd ask them for references. And today what's going on is we're doing the investigation. We're actually reading the references first because we don't want to waste our time reviewing products that don't get good references. Then we actually review the products, but online without the vendors actually knowing it. And then we actually go in for the deep dive with the vendor. So the awareness of the sale process is sort of flipped, and the future of digital transformation is making sure you can feed your customers with all the information they need to make the correct decision ahead of time. Otherwise, you're just going to be left out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Sebastian.
Yes, and another thing as well that organizations are facing, because there's a lot of things changing and accelerated during the pandemic, is the way they are embracing technology internally. So there's a lot of change management happening because we used to have the IT department controlling the rollout of technology. So in a local environment, for example, this is changing. So yes, you do have your IT department that gives the governance of how it's going to be done, but actually empower your different department who have access to the data, who knows the customer, who knows the process, who knows the best practices, they know what they want. You empower those departments to adapt to their reality. So that's also something that's very transformative in the business today. And we're seeing it. The guys who can do it faster than the other and have the ability to do this change management within their organization, they are becoming champion. So and they are leading right now. So you see it on the airline side, you see it on the banking, on the pharma, on different industries. So that's also something that's very transformative, and it's very some businesses find it challenging, others find it stimulating and fun to adopt. But definitely, it's also a transformation and challenge.
Yeah. And that's a great, you bring up a great point, Sebastian. So, you know, we see this digital transformation as a whole, right? And how it, you know, affects virtually every industry. But let's take that down like even a step further. So as we define what digital transformation is and we define, you know, what the future of that looks like, you know, how do you think that's going to apply to specific industries? Or, you know, do you feel that, you know, that one definition of digital transformation is good for everybody? I'd be interested to see your take on, you know, how it affects specific industries. And, you know, maybe Sam, I know that, let's take for an example, you're a financial services guy, you do a lot of work in that area. How do you see that from an industry perspective?
Well, one of the things we're seeing is clients who had proprietary software for doing quoting are now opening that quoting software up to customers as a whole so that they can self-serve and get quotes without actually having involvement of the firm. Okay. Where before you'd always have to go through a broker or an agent or representative, you still have to give your information, your email address, and for two-phase authentication, your cell phone. And so you are collecting that as lead information now, but it allows them to off hours run quotes and do estimates ahead of time.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. And if you think about how manual that process might have been in the past, you know, that takes a lot of that complexity out of it and puts it in the hand for self-service. Everybody wants that. Alan, how do you feel?
I have a logical follow-on to that. One of my clients here in the UK is an applied neuroscience business where they're dealing with the mental health of their clients, and the practitioner needs to collect a huge amount of information about the symptoms that this person has, you know, that define the manifestation of their mental health problem. And using digital transformation, we're in the process of opening up a portal whereby the client can record their own symptoms, the severity of their symptoms, and present them digitally into the database, which has now got a set of algorithms that can look at all these symptom mixes and give the practitioner a head start on where the treatment pathway for this client should go. Whereas before, the initial consultation would have been just a fact-finding session in order to collect that information and record it in an Excel spreadsheet or some other manual method. So it's Sam's point, you know, empowering the customer to collect the data on your behalf and speed the process up, but also engage them in the process. And my example in mental health in applied neuroscience is just another manifestation of that, but from a different industry point of view.
Absolutely. Sebastian, you have multiple experience in industries here. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I'll give an example in the manufacturing industry. So we have a customer who's implemented Creatio with them about, I would say, a year ago. So we did some digital transformation, brought some AI in, and his big dream that we could realize very rapidly in weeks, not in months. His vision was to predict when his customer will be missing stock. So we can proactively engage in a digital way with their customer, say, hey, Mr. Customer, according to our prediction, you should be low in stock for this SKU, which we could do very rapidly, like I said, and he's super happy because the customer feedback is great. They say, thank you for letting me know. You know what? You're right. Let's order a couple pallets. So this is an example of a digital transformation. And what I like, it's very customer centric. So you're avoiding the customer to go out of stock. So that's a great example. That's that's an example of a digital transformation for manufacturing. There's in every industry there's lots of those transformation as well happening. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and so these are great examples of how different industries can transform. And as you're talking to your customers, in each of these respective industries, we always know that there's going to be roadblocks on the path to digital transformation, right? There's always going to be something that people are going to have to overcome in terms of how to digitally transform their organization. So whether that's a culture of transformation, if it's lack of personnel to make that happen, we know that there's just a ton of challenges. And I'd be interested to hear, what do you think the biggest challenges are on that road to digital transformation? And Alan, maybe we can start with you in terms of what you see as the biggest challenges.
Okay, thanks, Eric. I think it's a question that we sort of addressed in one of the previous fireside chats, and I think one of the challenges is governance. You can't have everybody in your organization using low-code technology to develop new processes and going off in some kind of anarchic way, just doing what they think is right. Somewhere there has to be some governance. And going back to Sam's point from earlier, where the trend is from away from central IT out towards the user community for these developments. So it's about the balance. Where the challenge is the balance. Where is the governance on the way that low-code transformation and digital transformation is put into place? Gartner published some roadmap guidelines for CIOs earlier on this month, and they were talking in their document. They were talking about the fact that it's the CIO's responsibility to provide the infrastructure that's required within an organization, and it's probably the CIO's responsibility to handle all the procurement and the vendor management to support that infrastructure. But then the coordination of all the cross-functional initiatives that are going to go on, you're looking for change and you're looking for innovation, and you want the user communities, your different departments that are customer facing, supplier facing, HR facing. Efficiency is a goal that everyone's trying to improve. I think the challenge is that governance. Where do you put it? Who owns the responsibility for taking an innovative process from a proof of concept through to an MPV and then to a scalable enterprise-wide set of procedures? And I think that the answer to how that happens is going to vary from one industry to another, and maybe even from one company to another within a single sector. But that is, I think every organization has got to take seriously this question of governance and where it puts the power and the control, and where it puts the liberty and the flexibility.
Yeah, really all about driving that strategy. Couldn't agree more, Alan. Definitely a challenge, and you're right. Not a one size fits all, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Sebastian, what are you seeing as the biggest challenges?
I concur with Alan. It's about this transformation of the IT department transforming from being the guy who's doing the change from the guy who makes sure the governance in place, but the change management related to that is big, because the good news is the customer wants it. So the customer of our customer wants it. They want to be better served. They want to be fun. So there's a pressure from the customer. There's also pressure from the internal departments. You have the sales guy say, hey, I would like to do this. The customer service guy say, hey, I would like to do this. The marketing say, hey, how come we cannot do this? So the departments, and also the new generation of people coming into the workplace, those guys are technology savvy. So they're not developer, they're what at Creatio is called a citizen developer, or everyone's a developer. So those folks from the new generation, they are able to configure stuff, right? So they're also pushing. They say, you know what? I've seen the video, I've done the training, I can do it. And then you have the IT department so ego needs to get out of the way a little, and then implementing a policy or a governance into implementing rapidly those changes. So having your typical software development lifecycle shorten into rapid iteration. So that's a challenge, because business users understands it, so they gets it. They and customer also gets it. So it's just the ability for company to adopt the change, the internal change.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, that comes back in my mind to culture, right?
Absolutely.
You have to have that collaborative culture and that, bridge that gap between business and IT and ensure that the strategy is going to be solid. Sam, I'd like to hear your thoughts, and then I'll jump into a quick poll of the audience as well here. So we'd like to bring them in.
I think there's three things. Number one, I think it's resourcing and staffing. That's all changing with digital transformation. And you're right, the culture of the company, how quickly are they willing to change their staff around to fit it? But as I try to describe to people, pre-low code, this was your org chart. Project managers, developers, right? Now we got low code. It's now like this. Project managers, developers, and BAs are in the middle. And now you're having to transform all these people, and BA skills are listening, documenting, not necessarily the skills of developers. So one of the things that has to happen is you have to go through and consider, how am I going to change my staffing to fit a low code environment? The second thing I see is these people, when you get a citizen developer, they rapidly run out and try to build out a process without thinking about, is there any negative feedback loops being caused by that process? Can the process actually solve one problem and cause other problems? And that's because no one, again, this goes back to what you guys talked about, collaborative. You need other people to look at that and talk about that and think about that prior to just going out and implementing that. And then I think the third thing I'm running into is the management, particularly the older management, doesn't understand the tech of low code. So either they think it should take 5 minutes to build this out, or they don't fully understand the capabilities of low code. Like, you have to stay within a certain low code framework when you build stuff, because that's how you take advantage of it. Or they don't understand things like AI. Either they feel like, well, we can just turn it on when there's not enough data, or more importantly, they don't understand what AI can do for them. And so you have to explain it over and over, like, no, you want to really scale, you can do certain things with your AI that you're now doing manually. So it's sort of getting them to take a leap of faith around the technology itself, but also educating your management on what is the potential of this technology.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All great points, guys. And I think that, throughout our 10 days of the marathon, hopefully the audience is, starting to see that this is the way we have to, take a look at digital transformation and the planning that needs to go into that. It can't just be a siloed strategy. It really needs to be brought together across an entire organization. Let's take a quick poll of the audience as well, so we can bring them in and understand where they are from a digital transformation perspective. So, audience, let's launch this poll here. So the poll question is, how far are you in your digital transformation journey, and when did you start your digital transformation journey? So we have a series of answers here, guys. I'll just let you know, we've already started. We started in 2020, 2021. We're going to start in the next 12 months, or we've paused all initiatives. So as we wait for those results to come in, it'll be interesting to see where everybody is. And, anybody that's looking to start, we have three gentlemen that would probably love to talk to you at some point. Excellent. All right. So let's kind of move into the kind of the last phase of our discussion here, guys. So we understand the future, where we see digital transformation is going. We understand that there's challenges, and we've already talked a little bit about how low code can help overcome those challenges or actually accelerate that strategy that you're putting together. So when we look at low code, I think that it helps in many different areas. One, it's going to help to take that strain off of IT departments, right? Those project backlogs, demand from businesses here, and the project backlogs in IT is very very robust. It's growing, and they're having trouble keeping up with it, and that could be lack of resources, lack of funding. It could be all kinds of different factors that come into that. So I'd be interested to see again how you view low code addressing those challenges, right? So addressing those developer shortages, addressing lack of funding. How can we leverage low code to accelerate our digital transformation efforts? And I'll throw that one out there as a jump ball, guys. So whoever wants to grab that one first, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, so I can start. So low code start. So there's a couple of components of low code. So there's definitely the technology component, which to me is, I don't want to say it's the easy part, but that's not necessarily the most challenging part. Is the other component of adopting a low code strategy is related to the change of mind. Like you said culture. It's the way you normally execute the vision. So the vision of the organization, the mission and the vision, the way you operate to achieve that vision transform. So normally, we all read the big, nice books, business books, Good to Great and Selling and all those books. And they're all great in concept. But this is accelerating. So change on the technology side, when it's process related or customer centric related, the low code initiatives goes into an execution of the vision. So that's the mindset. So you're no more a coder or developer or a BA. You're a person that execute on the vision to better serve your customer. So that's the transformation that you need to go through. That's how I evangelize it. Let's say.
Yeah.
I don't want to say said it yet.
Sam, Alan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a client here in the UK. They're a law firm, and they were trying to improve client retention. If you're an ordinary citizen, maybe like us guys, you go to a law firm for a one-off transaction. You've had a road traffic collision and you want some legal support. You think you were unfairly dismissed from your job and you want some legal support. You're buying and selling property, you want some legal support. And there's no kind of continuity as to when those things happen in your life. And therefore your choice of lawyer might be different every time. And this law firm was trying to improve the loyalty, make the law firm stickier with the clients, so they got all these repeat activities coming back to the same law firm. And the IT department was busy in a transformation of their old back office system, time recording, billing, recording different case data, all the things that a back office system does for a law firm. The IT guys were completely tied up with that whole exercise. So the front end people who are trying to improve the way that they can increase client engagement and client loyalty were left without the ability to apply any technology to this. And Creatio Low Code saved them in that respect, in that now the marketing manager could go through a fairly small amount of education use the academy for knowledge and self-service learning, and use Collier Pickard for advice and guidance and mentoring, but basically build out this client review process so that they could expose the client's awareness of all the legal services they might have in the future. You know, writing wills, doing family trusts, looking after property, looking after your employment rights and your health rights and so on. So low code has enabled that law firm to create a client engagement machine, a technology-based machine that they couldn't have done without low code, because there were no IT resources available for them to use for at least 12 months whilst this back office upgrade was in play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you know, for me, I think that's a really strong case for looking at low code with a new hat. You know, it's the point that Sebastian made. If you make it customer facing, think about how you can improve things for the customer, then you're going to start an innovation process that's driven by the very people who have the problem to deal with, of making it easier for customers to do business with you.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful example. And Sam, I know that you and I have had a few engagements together, and have heard you know, similar stories of how low code can kind of augment staffing resources, different aspects like that. What are your thoughts here?
We have a joint bank that we work with, and they've hired 2 business analysts, and they're doing, you know, majority of the moving forward development. And, you know, we get involved only for heavy lifting, and, you know, and that's certainly very cost effective and very efficient for them. And the funny part is that they're moving faster. Their 2 business analysts are moving faster than their own IT department. So they have to continually stop what they're doing and wait for IT to catch up. And that's really the beauty of low code.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, again, all great examples of you know, regardless of industry, you know, low code does give the power to accelerate those processes by you know, putting the technology in the hands of business users, and in collaboration with IT. So bringing business users into that process and helping to accelerate that transformational cycle is tremendous amongst any industry. So great point, guys. And I just wanted to, before we jump into a couple of questions from the audience, I just wanted to give you the poll results. So how far are you in your digital transformation journey? Over 46% said that they've already started. That was also tied for, we started in 2020, 2021, followed by, we'll start in the next 12 months. Interesting thing, we paused all initiatives, came in at 0%. So that's good to hear that everybody is kind of thinking of that. So perfect. Why don't you guys up for a couple of questions within our last few minutes here, guys? All right. So the first question coming in indicates, has any of your customers encountered pushback from employees? So as digital transformation initiatives are rolling out, you know, have any of your customers encountered pushback from employees? Sebastian, or do you want to start, Sam? I'm sorry, either or.
I've got one, but yeah. Sebastian's got one. He can go first.
Oh, okay, perfect. So yeah, so there's yeah, and you know, the business people normally, from my experience, don't push back that much, but they understand the accountability of doing the digital transformation, and especially in a local environment. So the accountability to be accountable to support the department. But we get some pushback sometime on it's more on the governance side of the confidentiality, privacy. So when you start being in local environments and people start asking, what about the privacy of the information? What about the confidentiality of the information of some, you know, in some industry where it's more regulated? There's some pushback in there. Say, the legal will raise the flag and throw something and say, oh no, we cannot. So you need to, work with them. But I don't get that much push on my side from the business, so they like it normally. On the business side.
We have a startup healthcare company that's actually using diet to treat type 2 diabetics, and marvelous success. And within the year, we've built out a custom using low-code tools, a custom customer-facing tool where they can put in diet information. And we're getting actually pushback from their IT department because we're using Creatio and Creatio Studio to build everything at an incredibly rapid pace for the back office management. And then we are getting some pushback from some of the people, the doctors, because they're used to a dietitian managing 20 to 30 patients at one time, and we're showing them that we're using learning machines to do responses and identifying only critical situations. They can manage 200-300 patients at a time, and they can't make that visual jump. So our pushback is coming in for people who can't, again, understand the tech, or the IT department who just can't believe you can do stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize, Alan, but I've got red lights flashing at me that we're at time here. So, but guys, I really appreciate all of the feedback. And I think, you're absolutely right. That last question was actually, very insightful from the audience. And again, I go back to culture, right? And how you develop that strategy, and bringing in all, it's not just a top-down approach, but it's a bottom-up approach as well. And when you bring everybody into a collaborative cycle, good things happen. And I think that's, what we see when we're talking to any type of organization in any industry. If they have that mapped out well, digital transformation goes well. So again, wonderful discussion, guys. We never have enough time for these things. So I would like to thank each of you again for taking part in today's session, as well as your other sessions. Been truly an amazing journey here, folks. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll see you on our future events.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, guys. All right. Another riveting roundtable, guys. So that brings us up to our conclusion of our Low Code Marathon. Can you guys believe it? It's been 10 days of very insightful presentations. We've had nearly 50 sessions with over 50 speakers. So just a tremendous journey for us through the Low Code Marathon. Breaking it down by different industries per day, different topics per day, I think was really a great way to kind of approach this. It really made it digestible in terms of the information that was shared. And, hopefully, you've been able to attend multiple sessions because there was just tremendous content developed. So I'd like to, one, thank the audience for attending our Low Code Marathon, and also would like to thank all of our speakers and panelists. Again, very well prepared, very well, thought out discussion. So it was amazing. And on top of that, this is wrapping up this marathon. But coming into the fall session, we will be having other events just like the Low Code Marathon. So we will continue to develop content and have further thought leadership discussions, coming up in the future. So please, stay tuned on our website for any updates. We'll be providing those very shortly of our upcoming schedule. Also, along with the wrap up here, we also have some prizes to give away. We had mentioned our iPad giveaway. We'll be randomly selecting 3 individuals that took part in the marathon. The more sessions you attended was the more chances that you got to be included in the drawing. So without further ado, I would like to announce our winners of our iPod giveaway. Now, here we are. And if I had a drum roll machine, I would have that out right now. So if everybody's ready, our first winner is Alicia Clark. So congratulations, Alicia. You'll be receiving one of 3 iPads. We'll be following up with you via email directly after the marathon and how you can redeem that prize. Our second winner, Sherry and John. So here we are, our second winner. And again, same as Alicia, we'll be notifying you guys on how to redeem that prize. And last but certainly not least, Stefan Jourdain. Stefan, congratulations on winning our 3rd iPad. Just again, another tremendous giveaway. So hopefully that encourages everybody to join our future sessions. We're giving away fabulous prizes along with great thought leadership and content. Awesome. So, as we move forward, again, wrapping up our 10-day session, but there is just still a tremendous amount of content out there available for our low code, no code, thought leadership. First being our global report, the state of low code, no code. This is where we've had a survey of over 1,000 business leaders that have considered or have adopted low code technology to enhance their digital transformation efforts. A lot of great material in this report, guys. I encourage you to either use the QR code that you see on the screen here to download that copy, or go out to our website, creatio.com, and you'll be able to download it directly from there. In addition to that, we want to put the power of low code, no code in the hands of everybody. So we've had our recent release of Creatio 7.18, which is available for a trial version. You can either scan the QR code here on the screen to get the 14-day free trial, or go out to our website, creatio.com, and download the free trial from there. Really puts the technology in your hands to go out and experience low code, no code all for yourself. We also have our YouTube channel where you can subscribe to such great content that's available out there, available by industry, by product. You'll have all of this information available to you on our YouTube channel. So feel free to subscribe there. Great content as well. So you can continue your journey of learning about low code, no code capabilities. And also, subscribe to our podcast, our Low Code Talks with Creatio. You can hear great insights on any of the platforms that you see here at the bottom of the screen. Please take advantage of that as well. These are very, lively discussions regarding low code. And finally, I just wanted to thank everybody again. 10 days, 50 speakers, 50 sessions has just been an amazing journey for us. And hopefully, as I had mentioned, you've been able to join multiple sessions. I would like to thank everybody for attending, and I would also like to thank, again, all of our speakers and all of our panelists that took part in the Low Code Marathon. We definitely appreciate your insight and your feedback, and we're looking forward to our future events. Again, everybody stay tuned and have a wonderful, wonderful day.